The group by is essentially about organizing the rows that were returned by the previous logical step, namely the where step, into groups. And the way you define those groups is by providing a set of expressions within the group by clause. So in this example, we want to group customer 71's orders by the employee ID and the year of the order date. So for each such group, the rows that have that employee ID and the order year will be connected to that group, and then later on we will be able to apply all kinds of calculations per such group. What's important to remember here is that the query output will have only one row representing each target group, right? So in our example, let's go ahead and apply this kind of grouping. So let's highlight the query and execute here. And as you can see, we ended up getting 16 groups. And recall, we had 31 individual rows remaining after applying the where filter. So in those 31 rows, apparently there were 16 distinct employee and year groups. Now in the select part, as you can see, for each such group, currently we're returning just the employee ID and computing the year out of the order date and naming the result column order year. Soon we will apply all kinds of additional calculations on top. So now let's see what we can do for each of those groups. So normally you will apply all kinds of aggregate calculations for each of the groups. In this particular example, we want to go ahead and compute the sum of all of the freight values for each employee and year, as well as count how many orders each employee handled in each of those years. So sum of freight will be named the total freight column, and then count star simply means count rows, and then we will name the target column num orders. So let's go ahead and run this query. And now, as you can see, for each employee and year combination, we got the total freight and the number of orders. So apparently employee 1 handled only one order in the year 2017. And then employee 1 handled 2 orders in the year 2018. And then you can see the freight value for this group and the total freight value for this group, basically summing the two individual orders. Now, a couple of important things to note about the way aggregate calculations work. So first of all, SQL Server provides us with a number of built-in aggregate functions like the count, the sum, the average, the mean, and the max. And they're applied to all of the rows that belong to the group. Now, if we have any nulls, remember a null represents a marker for a missing value. If we have any nulls involved in the data, the nulls are essentially ignored. Another interesting thing is that if you compute an average, then internally it's actually broken down into a sum that is divided by a count. So both the sum and the count will ignore those nulls. So if a given group has, let's say, 3 rows, and one of those rows has a null in a value, a column that we want to aggregate, when we will compute the average of the value, then it will sum only the 2 applicable values and divide by the count of 2 non-null cases, right? Now, if you wish to compute distinct aggregates like counting the distinct number of customer IDs that were handled in each group, you simply add the distinct clause in the input of the aggregate function. So in this particular example, we're applying a count distinct customer ID. Even though there aren't many practical use cases, this can be applied to other aggregates, like applying the sum of the distinct values, right? So let's go ahead and compute here the count distinct customer ID for each employee and year group. And as you can see, for instance, employee 1 in the year 2017 handled orders for 22 distinct customers. If you went ahead and applied count without the distinct clause, you're not really counting distinct occurrences of customer ID, you're counting only non-null occurrences of customer ID. So for instance, employee 1 in the year 2017, you could see a higher value. Here you can see employee 1 in the year 2017, notice it's 26 rows where the customer ID wasn't a null. So make sure that you understand the distinction between count of an expression versus count distinct of the expression. Count of the expression will count non-null occurrences. Count distinct expression will count distinct non-null occurrences, right? So here, going back to employee 1 in the year 2017, as you can see, out of 26 orders, we had 22 distinct customers that were handled.